I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of PowerBand Solutions. PowerBand is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. PowerBand Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at SpencerFernando.com. Welcome back to the show and Happy New Year, Spencer.
Good to be here. Happy New Year.
We will have a federal election in Canada in October. The latest Angus Reid poll numbers, perhaps not all that favorable for the current Prime Minister. Can you tell us about them?
Yeah, well, it shows that the Conservatives are leading the Liberals. Angus Reid generally shows the Conservatives doing fairly well, so it's not a big surprise. But really, it's the approval rating numbers for Trudeau. He's got 35% approval, over 50% disapproval. And the trend from when he first was elected to now has been pretty steady. His approval has gone down, his disapproval has gone up, and the intensity of approval has also changed. So the people who disapprove of him are much more intense in their feelings, strongly disapproving, and the people who approve of him are less intense. Most of the people who approve of him only somewhat approve. Very few people strongly approve. So that's going to be a big issue for him.
What have been his biggest issues to bring his numbers down?
Well, I think the India trip was a big one. That got a lot of attention. He really looked foolish there. And that was the first time I think his numbers, you really saw his, even the establishment media had to cover him in a somewhat negative light. They couldn't spin it really enough for his liking. And I think it's just been a steady stream of things. I think the carbon tax you're seeing around the world, including in France, people revolting against policies that are increasing taxes on, working class and middle class people. Well, it seems, the really wealthy and well connected never end up paying more and never, face any difficulty financially. So I think it's a lot of things coming together. And, I think the economy is also slowing down. So people expected Trudeau would strengthen the economy. That's not happening. So, it's definitely hurting his numbers.
Well, does it help when we have a female member of the armed forces, a captain, having to pay for her own artificial leg?
Yeah, I think that kind of thing really outrages people. I think one of the big things is that people see Omar Khadr getting $10.5 million from the Trudeau government. They're willing to throw money all over the place, and then it seems the one place where they all of a sudden run out of money is when it comes to helping veterans, and it's been a repeated pattern. Trudeau, they run huge deficits, adding to the debt. They find money for everything else, but whenever veterans need help, or people even serving the military currently need help, or the military needs new equipment, all of a sudden there's no money to be found. So I think that upsets a lot of people as well.
Are the armed forces having trouble finding people to volunteer for a deadly job where it looks like you won't get benefits?
Yeah, they're having very, very big problems recruiting. Part of it, though, is that they've set, politically correct arbitrary targets. They say they want 25% of the military to be women, which to me, it makes no sense why you just set an arbitrary number. I think if people join the military and they meet the qualifications, then it really shouldn't matter. But to go out of your way to try to recruit more women, it's just, if you look throughout history in almost every country, maybe one or two exceptions, but almost everywhere in the world, on average, men are more willing to join and more interested in joining the military than women. It's just a fact. And for the government to try to go against that and try to artificially change the numbers seems to me to be a waste of time and money. And the problem is that it's really a distraction. The military is supposed to be there to protect Canada from attack and, if necessary, to attack our enemies. It's not meant to be some sort of politically correct social engineering project. But that seems like that's what the government's trying to turn it into.
Mm-hmm. Now, if they're not willing to give you an artificial leg, and this is for a serving member, she's still in Afghanistan fighting for Canada. So what kind of rights would a female member of the military get if they can't look after the current ones?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, they're trying to recruit people, but what can you say to someone to get them to join? I mean, first, your equipment's going to be terrible, because the government always buys the worst. They buy stuff that other countries are discarding. It's not good enough for Australia, but they're going to buy their old F-18s to replace our old F-18s, which makes no sense. And so you have people who basically, you try to recruit people and you say, okay, your equipment's going to be terrible. You're not going to get benefits if you get hurt serving the country. And we're basically just going to lie to you. We'll tell you we'll take care of you, and then if you're ever in trouble, we won't. So, yeah, it's no wonder they're having trouble recruiting people.
Yes, and if they say they're pro-veteran benefits, how come they always fight them in court?
Exactly. It would be a joke if it wasn't actually so serious and so depressing, right? I mean, the government just seems to think that the military really isn't necessary. They do just bear enough to say we technically have a military, but aside from that, it's obviously right at the bottom of their priority list.
What about hints that the RCMP says they're so desperate for recruits they may drop the requirement that you not have a criminal record? Is that a smart thing to do?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty bad idea. I think, if it's say it's something maybe like a minor conviction for marijuana possession years ago, something like that I wouldn't have a problem, because that's obviously not someone who's going to be a big danger or anything. But I think the bigger concern is that they're talking about getting rid of some of the aptitude tests, in terms of even vision tests, hearing tests, saying the standards are too high, basically tests of judgment, aptitude. So if you get rid of that, then you think, what are you going to be left with in terms of people in the RCMP? I mean, you're trusting people to be in a position of authority, but the standards seem to be incredibly low. That's not really a good combination. So that's not a good thing at all. And again, it's more political correctness, because it's someone from I think it was the Status of Women Department who went to the RCMP and is now advising them to make these changes. And I'm not really sure what the Status of Women Department has to do with the RCMP. Those seem like pretty different departments.
You think it would be the Attorney General?
You think so?
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp, MGI, and the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected several high-grade gold intersections, including 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. Additional drill targets on the LH property have been identified by a 2018 drone airborne magnetic survey to further evaluate a pyrrhotite-enriched gold-bearing system. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Spencer, is Maxime Bernier, the leader of the People's Party of Canada, making any headway yet?
Well, he has. They say they've gotten riding associations set up in all 338 ridings in the country. So that's a pretty impressive accomplishment in a pretty short amount of time. That means it's pretty likely they'll have candidates in at least most of the ridings, which again, that's pretty impressive to organize that quickly. The question will be whether they can turn that into poll numbers. Right now, I think they're still polling pretty low. The few polls I've seen is about 1 or 2%. And the thing is, conservative voters, and I think many Canadians understandably, their main focus is on defeating Trudeau, and they're going to look to the party that is in the best position to do that. And just objectively right now, that's still the Conservative Party. They're either leading or tied in most of the polls against Trudeau. So I think that's going to be the challenge. It's kind of similar to what used to happen on the left, where the NDP would always have the problem of NDP voters saying, well, maybe we want to vote NDP, but we want to defeat the Conservatives, so we're going to vote Liberal instead because that's the only party that can do that. That could be the problem for people, even if they feel that Maxime Bernier is more of a pure Conservative in terms of his ideas. They may still vote for the Conservative Party because they see that as the best chance to beat Trudeau.
Andrew Scheer, I haven't heard him come out and say much except he's against the carbon tax. What does he stand for?
Yeah, I think he's trying to play it pretty safe. The problem with that is if you don't make it clear what you're standing for, then your opponent will just make it up. And the Liberals are obviously going to run a very negative campaign against him, and the establishment media will help the Liberals out a lot too. So that's going to be an issue for him. I guess they don't want to release too much because they don't want it to be stolen. But I think that's not the world we live in anymore. The campaign has really already started, even though it's not officially underway. You're always communicating now on social media and videos and TV. And if he's not getting his message out, then it's going to be an issue for him. He did a New Year's video, and he focused mostly on criticizing Trudeau. And from what you can see people talking about on Twitter, not getting the best reviews. So I think their communication strategy is still going to need some work.
Do you think it's a case of people want to like Trudeau, and Scheer does not seem to be a selfie kind of guy? The Prime Minister still, if somebody asks him to pose for a picture with him, he'll do it.
Yeah, I think the big issue for Scheer is that my analysis of it, I think he'd be a pretty good Prime Minister. I think he's a smart person, definitely has a lot of knowledge. But I think the two issues for him is that a lot of Canadians are very angry about what's happening in the country, and he talks as if he's angry, but he often seems like he's not angry. And I think that kind of feeds into the second issue, where he's been in Ottawa for a long time, and in some ways he's kind of comfortable with Ottawa and with the life there. And so it's tougher for him to position himself as an outsider, because he's really not an outsider, even when a lot of voters are looking for that. What he can do is he can position himself as just a more regular middle-class Canadian, because his upbringing obviously much more middle-class than Justin Trudeau. So I think if that's the direction he goes, then I think that can be more effective. He's tried to do that so far, but he's going to have to find a balance between, not being, not seeming crazy or anything, but he also has to seem a little more angry in some cases, because there are a lot of things to be angry about. And if he always looks like he's smiling and happy about things, then it doesn't really match with what he's saying. So that's going to be an issue for him.
Didn't he say that he might repeal the legal marijuana law?
He said that, and then they very quickly backtracked. I think they got a lot of criticism on that. I think a lot of young people in the Conservative Party would not be pleased about that. Even leaders in provinces that don't support legalizing marijuana, I think they wouldn't be happy about going back, because they've spent all this time changing the laws, getting everything set up, and then to have to undo all of that. And then you'd be really turning a lot of people into criminals again. You allow legal businesses to be set up, and then you say, oh, it's illegal now. That'd be a disaster. So I think, they backtracked. I think 1 or 2 days later, he backtracked on that.
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Spencer, Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP, says he wants to run in the Burnaby South by-election, replacing Kennedy Stewart, a longtime NDP member who went on to become the mayor of Vancouver. What are his chances in Burnaby South? I used to live there, and the last time it was quite a tight vote in favor of the NDP, just barely edging out the Liberals. What kind of fight is he in for?
Well, I think he's in for a pretty tough fight, because he definitely isn't resonating across the country. His poll numbers are terrible. The NDP can't really raise any money. Tons of their MPs are saying they're not going to run again, because I think they don't think they can win. And when they asked people in the same Angus Reid poll we talked about earlier, they asked people who they saw as the best prime minister. Scheer was in first, Trudeau in second, and then Elizabeth May has more people saying she'd be a good prime minister than Jagmeet Singh. So he's got some serious problems. In all likelihood, the best thing that could happen for the NDP would be for him to lose, and then he would most likely have to resign, and they would get a new leader, maybe Charlie Angus, someone like that, who could better connect with working class voters, because right now Jagmeet Singh, whatever he's doing, isn't working. He's kind of tried to out Trudeau, which didn't work, and then he only ever seems to appear in the media when he's discussing some sort of sexual harassment issue in the NDP, which is not really a good association to make in the minds of people and your leader. So I don't know. He seems like he doesn't know what he's doing. It's not working out too well for him. So best case for the NDP, and actually for the Conservatives too, is that Singh loses and gets replaced by someone who leads the NDP better. Because the Conservatives really need the NDP to get at least, 19, 20, 20-something%, to have a better chance of beating Trudeau.
Well, I didn't think Jack Layton was all that bad a leader, but maybe he had some bad advice going into the last election, where it seemed his policies were more conservative than Stephen Harper's.
Jack Layton or Tom Mulcair?
Or I should say Tom Mulcair. See, I get them all mixed up. Maybe
they
need better publicity to get us media guys to pay attention to who's doing what.
Yeah. Well, I think Mulcair's issue was that he was trying to play it safe, because he knew he was in a tough spot, because he knew that voters were very worried about giving power to the NDP for the first time. So he tried to play it safe. Trudeau outflanked him on the left, but Trudeau had the benefit of the Liberal brand, which people at least had seen in power, and enough people felt, okay, we've seen them in power before, we can trust them. And then Trudeau had his name, right? I mean, so much of what he's gotten in his life is because his last name is Trudeau. So I think Mulcair was in a tough spot, but I'm sure most people in the NDP are regretting throwing Mulcair overboard so quickly, because with Justin Trudeau really, I think, losing a lot of credibility, and with definitely some space on the left, but with a leader who could actually be effective, I think Mulcair would probably be doing better, and they'd be doing better in Quebec. The NDP right now looks like they're going to get wiped out in Quebec, and that probably wouldn't have happened if Mulcair was there. So I don't know. I think they're probably regretting getting rid of him.
Is Canada going to start being a two-party country?
It looks like it. I think if you look at the divisions in most of the rest of the world, it's kind of going that way. There's kind of a left-wing party and a conservative party. But I think the interesting thing is there's a lot of a backlash, understandably, to globalization. And that kind of has an interesting split. Certain things like, I think a lot of the conservative base, and myself included, are not really a fan of the so-called free trade agreements we keep seeing everywhere. The trade doesn't really seem free. It seems to benefit multinational corporations, not workers. And so I think there's a bit of a pushback against kind of the conservative orthodoxy on trade, and which also the Liberals have been buying into as well. So the question will be how conservative parties kind of balance their traditional so-called conservative views with, I think, the way a lot of their voters are shifting. And that's going to be a challenge for Andrew Scheer. I mean, he just came out and said a while ago that he's not a fan of free trade with China. And that's not a position conservatives would have taken until recently. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what parties do. The Liberals are really doubling down on the kind of, globalization, international organization thing. And I don't think that's what most people want.
Yes. Would that be a big reversal if they said they don't want more trade or free trade with China, considering we've had so much trouble with the U.S. lately?
Yeah, I think the thing, at least in my opinion, is that leaders in Canada have become too outward focused. I mean, if you look at the resources we have in this country, the wealth and knowledge we have here, we really don't need to be as dependent on the world as it seems our leaders think we are. And I think we should look at building up our own country. I mean, we don't even have open trade between our own provinces. So the idea that we need to focus externally first, I'd say fix problems here in Canada first, get trade going between Canadian provinces, utilize all our resources. I mean, it makes no sense that the East is getting oil from Saudi Arabia or Nigeria or anywhere else instead of Alberta. So I think we should fix those problems first before considering any so-called free trade agreements.
Right, and we don't have free movement of labor. If you're certified in one province, it doesn't mean you're certified in the next.
Yeah, so again, it makes the politicians seem like total hypocrites when they talk about free trade. I mean, we're going to have so-called free trade with communist China, but we can't even trade between provinces. I mean, that makes no sense at all.
And I don't even think it's been clear if you're allowed to take marijuana from Ontario to Manitoba.
No, I mean, it's very strange that we can't seem to figure out trade between provinces after so much. I mean, there's so much evidence that it's hurting the economy and hurting the country. And yet our leaders just seem to mostly ignore that, or they do some little announcement saying they've opened it up when it hasn't really opened up. And then they go back to trying to trade with other countries. It's very strange.
In Alberta, they're holding semi-trailer rallies urging the building of pipelines. Could the federal government surpass the federal court order to re-examine the Trans Mountain Pipeline by just passing, say, the Pipeline Act that says what's been done is done and it must be built?
Well, yeah, I mean, the government does have broad authority on infrastructure issues. They can declare projects in the national interest. Something I tweeted was a while ago was, imagine if Canada was all of a sudden at war and we needed to build pipelines throughout the country. Does anybody really think the government couldn't get these things done really in weeks if they had to? So all of this delay is just political posturing, really. For Trudeau, I mean, his problem is that he's trying to have it both ways. He's trying to pretend he supports the energy industry when, if you look at the people around him, they're not supporters of the energy industry at all. They're not fans of it. They really want to bring it down, but he can't admit that openly. So he has to pretend that he somewhat supports it, but he also doesn't want to lose the votes of, I guess, people the far left who are against the energy industry. So he's trying to have it both ways, and it seems like he's really just getting everybody angry.
Spencer, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Yeah, good talking to you.
My guest has been investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at spencerfernando.com. If you have any questions for Spencer or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.